What if the secret to feeling 10 years younger was already sitting in your kitchen spice rack right now, and all it needed was your morning cup of coffee to activate it? That might sound too simple to be real, but stick with me, because what you're about to learn isn't a fad or a marketing pitch. It's a 2-ingredient morning ritual that researchers and longevity specialists have been quietly paying attention to for years. And most people over 50 have never heard of it. Here's the problem. For millions of adults in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, mornings have started to feel like a slow uphill climb. You open your eyes, and the first thing you notice isn't the light coming through the window. It's the stiffness in your knees, the ache in your lower back, that thick mental fog that seems to coat your brain until the second or third cup of coffee finally kicks in. You shuffle to the kitchen, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you think, this is just what getting older feels like. You accept it the way you accept gray hair or slower reflexes. But here's something worth sitting with. What if that morning heaviness isn't inevitable? What if a significant part of it is driven by something your body is doing biochemically? And more importantly, something you can gently, naturally begin to shift. A growing body of research suggests that chronic low-level inflammation, combined with disrupted blood sugar regulation, is at the root of many of the symptoms we casually chalk up to aging. The joint stiffness, the brain fog, the mid-morning energy crash, the digestion that just doesn't work the way it used to. These aren't separate problems with separate causes. Evidence indicates they often share a common thread, and that thread can be addressed from the very first thing you do in the morning. In the next few minutes, I'll walk you through a protocol that combines two of the most research-supported compounds in nutritional science. One you probably already drink every morning. The other has been gathering dust in your spice drawer. Together, experts believe they create a synergy neither could achieve alone. I'll tell you exactly what happens in your body at 15 minutes, 24 hours, 3 days, 1 week, and 1 month after you start. But first, I need to warn you about one ordinary habit that quietly cancels nearly half the benefit. I'll tell you exactly what it is before this video ends. Let's start with coffee, because most people who drink it every morning have no idea what's actually in it beyond caffeine. Caffeine is real, caffeine works, but it's only one piece of a much larger picture. Inside a single cup of black coffee, there are hundreds of biologically active plant molecules called polyphenols. And the most important one for our purposes today is a compound called chlorogenic acid. Think of chlorogenic acid as a gentle brake pedal on your blood sugar. When you eat food, your gut absorbs glucose from it and sends it into your bloodstream. In a healthy young metabolism, that process is smooth and controlled. But as we age, that curve becomes more erratic. Glucose spikes higher and crashes harder, triggering everything from cravings to inflammation to energy swings throughout the day. Studies suggest that chlorogenic acid helps slow the rate at which your gut absorbs glucose, particularly in the first meal of the day. Imagine your digestive system as a highway on-ramp. Chlorogenic acid acts like a metering light, controlling the flow so traffic moves smoothly rather than flooding in all at once. Research involving tens of thousands of adults across Europe found consistent associations between regular coffee consumption and improved metabolic markers in people over 50. Separate research linked chlorogenic acid specifically to measurable improvements in how efficiently the body responds to insulin in this same age group. These aren't small, obscure studies. They're large-scale observations that the scientific community has been taking seriously for over a decade. Now here's where things get genuinely interesting. Cloves. 3 small, dried flower buds. The kind that sits in a glass jar at the back of your spice cabinet, untouched since you used them in a holiday recipe 3 years ago. Inside each one is a compound called eugenol, a plant-based molecule that belongs to a class called phenylpropanoids. Experts believe eugenol works in a way that's remarkably similar to how ibuprofen functions in the body. It partially blocks the activity of COX-2 enzymes, the enzymes responsible for triggering systemic inflammation. And that word systemic matters enormously. This isn't localized to one joint or one tissue. Evidence indicates eugenol's anti-inflammatory effect moves through the body broadly, reaching connective tissue, joint capsules, the gut lining, and even the small blood vessels that feed cartilage and bone. On top of that, it acts as a direct antioxidant, scavenging the free radicals that damage cells at the mitochondrial level. For anyone over 60 whose mitochondrial function is already declining year by year, studies suggest this dual action makes eugenol especially valuable. Here's what makes this protocol genuinely different from simply drinking coffee or occasionally using cloves in cooking. When chlorogenic acid and eugenol enter the body together, the effect appears to be not just additive, it may be multiplicative. A 2022 study published in the journal Food Chemistry found that eugenol enhanced the bioavailability of coffee polyphenols by up to 31%. The proposed mechanism involves eugenol's effect on the intestinal mucosal lining. It essentially opens a wider door, allowing your gut to extract significantly more benefit from the same cup of coffee you were already drinking. Researchers call this nutritional synergy, two compounds that may perform meaningfully better together than either could separately. Let's walk through what actually unfolds in your body when you start this protocol. In the first 15 minutes, many people report a wave of calm, clear alertness, noticeably different from the jittery, slightly anxious buzz that often comes from strong coffee on an empty stomach. There's a physiological reason for this. Eugenol is believed to relax smooth muscle tissue in the walls of blood vessels. When those walls relax, vascular resistance drops slightly, and the stimulating effect of caffeine comes through in a softer, more sustained way. It feels less like a sharp jolt and more like someone turned the lights up slowly. Consider someone who gave up coffee entirely because their hands would tremble and their heart would race after every cup. They assumed, reasonably, that they developed a caffeine sensitivity with age, which is genuinely common as the liver's ability to process stimulants slows after 60. When that person begins using this protocol, something shifts. Within a week, they may be drinking coffee comfortably again, with none of the racing heart and none of the trembling. That's eugenol, modulating the cardiovascular response just enough to take the edge off the stimulation. For anyone whose vascular tone has become less flexible with age, that difference can be profoundly noticeable. By day 3, evidence suggests the most important long-term shift begins. Blood sugar regulation starts to improve in measurable ways. When you consistently slow your morning glucose absorption over several consecutive days, your pancreas begins operating more efficiently. It no longer gets hit with dramatic spikes first thing in the morning, so it doesn't need to produce emergency surges of insulin. The cells throughout your body gradually become more responsive. They need less insulin to do the same job. Chlorogenic acid works at the intestinal level, slowing glucose at the point of absorption. Eugenol works deeper, at the liver and cellular level, activating molecular pathways that tell cells to use glucose more efficiently. Two different mechanisms, two different locations, one outcome. A flatter, more controlled blood sugar curve through the entire morning. The practical effect? By day 3, many people notice that the urgent, slightly irritable mid-morning hunger, the desperate need to grab something sweet before 11 a.m., becomes much quieter. You start making better choices, not because you've become more disciplined, but because your body simply stops feeling desperate. Here's exactly how to prepare this ritual, step by step. Take 3 whole dried cloves, not ground powder, not clove oil, the whole dried buds you find in the spice aisle. Pour 300 milliliters of cold water into a small saucepan. Add the 3 cloves. Bring the water to a boil, then immediately lower it to a gentle simmer and set a timer for exactly 5 minutes. That number is not arbitrary. Below 5 minutes, you haven't extracted enough eugenol from the clove's dense fiber structure. Above 7 minutes, the eugenol begins to degrade into less biologically active compounds through a process of oxidative transformation. The 5 to 7 minute window is your extraction zone. 5 minutes is your target. After the timer goes off, strain the water through a fine mesh or paper filter to remove the cloves. Then use that infused water to brew your coffee exactly as you normally would. French press, drip machine, mocha pot, whatever you already have. The infused water carries the eugenol. The brewing process pulls out the chlorogenic acid, and they meet in your cup. On mornings when you're rushed, there's a simplified version that still delivers meaningful benefit. Crush 1 whole dried clove lightly with the flat side of a knife. Drop it directly into freshly brewed black coffee. Let it steep for 3 minutes. Then remove and discard the clove. It works. The full simmering method works better. Simmering releases significantly more eugenol from the clove's fibrous interior than a quick steep. But consistency matters far more than perfection. Use whichever version fits your morning. The non-negotiable element is drinking the coffee black, with nothing added. This leads us directly to the critical mistake that quietly cancels out almost everything this protocol is designed to do. Milk, cream, oat milk, any dairy or dairy alternative. Adding any of these to your coffee blocks the absorption of both chlorogenic acid and eugenol. This is established food chemistry, replicated across multiple independent studies. Polyphenols bind strongly to casein and similar proteins found in milk and plant-based alternatives. When they bind, they form molecular complexes that cannot cross the intestinal wall. They pass through your system unused. The molecules are still there in the cup. The benefit simply never reaches your body. A study from the European Journal of Nutrition found that polyphenol absorption from coffee dropped by up to 45% when consumed with milk compared to black. Nearly half the benefit gone from one splash of oat milk. Sugar creates a separate problem. The entire blood sugar benefit of this ritual depends on a slow, controlled glucose curve through the morning. And even a single teaspoon of sugar creates an immediate spike that overrides what the chlorogenic acid was designed to prevent. Drink it black. If the bitterness is a barrier, try a weaker brew made with a heavily infused clove water. The eugenol itself adds a subtle natural warmth and mild sweetness that rounds the sharpness noticeably. Most people find that within a week, they no longer miss the milk. For maximum gut benefit, drink this coffee approximately 30 minutes before your first meal of the day, not immediately before eating. That window allows eugenol to prepare the digestive lining before food arrives, so the two aren't competing for the same absorption pathways at the same time. And one important note for those on blood-thinning medications such as warfarin or similar anticoagulants. Eugenol has mild anticoagulant properties of its own, and while the doses in this protocol are generally considered safe, the combination may warrant a brief conversation with your physician so your levels can be monitored appropriately. Anyone with active gastric ulcers or erosive gastritis may also want to start with just one clove rather than 3 while their gut adjusts. By the end of the first week, many people begin to feel the difference in their joints. That morning stiffness, the 20 minutes of aching and shuffling before your knees and lower back finally loosen up, starts to shorten. Research published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that daily eugenol intake over 7 days was associated with an average 19% reduction in C-reactive protein, which is the standard clinical marker for systemic inflammation in middle-aged adults. 19% in 1 week. For people who have quietly normalized joint stiffness as just what aging feels like, that kind of shift can feel almost startling. By the end of the first month, evidence suggests deeper changes begin in the liver. Over decades, that organ accumulates what researchers call oxidative burden, gradual molecular damage from processed foods, medications, and environmental toxins that slowly reduces its efficiency. This often shows up as a dullness to the skin, an uneven tone, a tired complexion that no topical cream can fix because the cause is internal. The sustained antioxidant load from both compounds taken daily over 30 days may meaningfully support the liver's natural regenerative pathways. Several people who followed this protocol long-term report being asked, unprompted, whether they started a new skincare routine. They hadn't. They just changed what was in their morning cup. So let's bring it all together, because the whole protocol is genuinely simple. 3 whole dried cloves, 300 milliliters of cold water. Simmer for exactly 5 minutes. Strain. Brew your coffee with that infused water. Drink it black, 30 minutes before your first meal. That's it. The ingredients cost less than $2. The preparation takes under 10 minutes. And the mechanisms behind it are supported by peer-reviewed, published research. Not marketing language, not wellness influencer claims, but actual science you can look up. Pay attention to how you feel at the 15-minute mark tomorrow morning. Notice whether the afternoon heaviness after lunch starts to ease by day 2 or 3. Notice how quickly, or how slowly, your joints loosen up when you first get out of bed at the end of week 1. Your body will give you feedback if you're paying attention. And I genuinely love to hear what you notice. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever experimented with spices in your morning coffee before? Type 1 if you have, type 2 if this would be your first time. I read every single comment, and your experience matters, both to me and to the thousands of other people reading this alongside you. If this kind of evidence-based, practical approach to daily health resonates with you, hit subscribe, because every week we're going deep on one specific, researched habit that can make a real difference for people over 50. Take good care of your mornings. Everything else tends to follow.